So then guys, with the launch of the iPhone 17 Pro Max and the iPhone Air, one thing that was promoted, especially with the iPhone 17 Pro models, was the brand new vapor chamber. This new chamber allows for heat to be dispensed all over the iPhone this time round, and it's also a big reason why Apple decided to switch to aluminum or aluminium, depending where you are in the world, from titanium like we had with the iPhone 16 models or the Pro models and the iPhone 15 Pro models, because supposedly it will help with the heat and control it a little better. The other thing to also note with the iPhone Air is that Apple have also said that all of the main electronics, the chips and everything like that, and the camera is all up in the top of this phone in that camera plateau. So everything is centered up there. So today I want to find out a few things here. I want to know, does this new vapor system really make a difference compared to the iPhone 16 Pro Max? And also, say the camera plateau in the iPhone Air, does that get super hot too? And sticking with titanium, was that a bad idea with this? Because obviously, you know, the main outer rim is made out of that. So we're going to do some tests today. And in fact, we're going to do two of them. The first test we're actually going to complete is all to do with doing a 3D benchmark on here. Now, what I'm using is 3D Mark, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a test where I'm going to use the solar sort of test here. We're going to do a stress test here, the extreme one, and then when we get through this test, we're going to see how hot these iPhones will actually get. So what I've got here then is the three phones all ready to go. We have got the likes of the iPhone 17 Pro Max here. We've also got the iPhone Air. That's all ready to go as well. I've just knocked on the camera, so let's just go back to that. And then we've also got the likes of the iPhone 16 Pro Max as well. So we're going to do this test then, and we're going to do the Solar Bay Extreme Stress Test. So I'm just going to get this started now on all three of the phones, and then what's going to happen is I'm going to take a recording for you when we get to the 12th round here, when it goes around the 12th loop. It's set at 20 loops, so we're going to see how hot it is on the front. Well, I'm expecting it to be hotter on the front of the screen than on the rear. Well, more likely I'd say that the screen temperatures are probably going to be similar across the board, but on the back, that's where I think you're going to see the main sort of differences there. That vapor chamber's working very well in the iPhone 17 Pro Max. We're going to see the heat all in one top corner, I'm guessing, with the Air, and then also maybe the heat just completely all over the phone of the iPhone 16 Pro Max. So let's just get to the actual 12th loop then. So let's check out the heat then on the very front of the screen. So let's have a look at the iPhone 17 Pro Max. So the hottest point is the red crosshair there. The white one is where I'm actually aiming. So let's see where the red one's lining up to. So you can see here it says the maximum amount of heat there. So it's saying it's 45 there. So yeah, that's the maximum that this is going at. So about 45 and a half degrees centigrade there. So that's how hot that is going. But if we go over then to the likes of the iPhone Air, let's have a look then to see how hot this one is getting. Now, funny enough, this is unusual. So, you know, much as we said we had this thermal built in, well, we're only at 44 degrees here. So going back, I just want to double check that. Yeah, we're actually hotter on the likes of the iPhone 17 Pro Max. But do remember, we do have that additional GPU core. We've got 6 in this. This one's only got 5. But what I do also want to show is, can you see how the heat is being shown there? It's going all across the body. Whereas on the iPhone Air, look, it's just mainly at the top there. Let's get rid of my sun glare or my light glare there. It's all at the top focused. But if we go over to the likes of the iPhone 16 Pro Max, this is where it gets interesting. It's not actually as hot. So as much as Apple has said about the vapor chamber, yeah, I don't know if it's cooler, because look, it's only 42 degrees here centigrade, but you can see how the heat is more focused in one area where the logic board is. But let's go back over to the iPhone 17 Pro Max. Yeah, you know, I've let these tests run a little bit more. This is at 45 degrees. So this is quite interesting. On the front screen, the iPhone 16 Pro Max is actually cooler, whereas the likes of the iPhone Air sits in the middle, but it's going to be cooler at the bottom, obviously, because there's no circuitry or anything like that. So This is quite interesting to see, but let's now flip over the phone. So I'm just going to flip over the iPhone 17 Pro Max first of all, then I'm going to flip over the likes of the iPhone Air, and then we're going to flip over the iPhone 16 Pro Max. So the tests are still running on the other side. So let's have a look then to see what we've got here. So now the temperature on the back is 44 degrees, so it is cooler on the back of the phone than the front screen, and we're at 45 there. So yeah, definitely a difference there. Whereas, whoa, yeah, much hotter here. So we're at the likes of about 47 degrees there on the iPhone Air, whereas the iPhone 16 Pro Max, even hotter. We're at 47 degrees. So yeah, on the back of the phones, it is making a difference, the vapor system. The glass, the screen is weirdly on the front is hotter, but just to show you again there, look, see 44 degrees at the hottest point on the iPhone 17 Pro Max. iPhone 16 Pro Max, it's probably just going to calibrate again, or maybe not. 48 degrees there. So, or even 49 almost touching. There we go, 49 degrees. It's just done it. Whereas the likes of the iPhone Air, once that's calibrated, there we go, we've got 47 degrees. So we are cooler definitely on the rear here of the likes of the iPhone 17 Pro Max, and the iPhone 16 Pro Max on the rear is definitely hotter, and the iPhone Air, funny enough, actually sits in the middle here. But obviously the other thing to notice is how the heat is being dispensed here. So you can see it's all mainly focused on the logic board here on the 16 Pro Max. On the Air, well, obviously it's all at the top. The bottom's got hardly anything at all. In fact, look, if you look there at the bit where I'm actually, focusing on here, it says it's 30 degrees compared to the likes of the 46 degrees at the top there. Whereas the iPhone 17 Pro Max, you can see the heat is being dispensed all over. So even down the bottom here, that is great to see that obviously we're like 38 degrees, that the heat is being pushed over. So the vapor system definitely works on the rear of the phone. Just the front of the phone, it is hotter actually on the screen of the 17 Pro Max compared to the 16 Pro Max. So that was quite interesting to see, especially I'd say the front glass it was much more hotter on the iPhone Air and the iPhone 17 Pro Max. Maybe that 3000 nits compared to 2000 nits maybe makes a bit of difference. Now I know that 3000 nits is mainly for it will switch on when you're outside, it can recognize that, but I don't know. This was quite unusual to see that the front glass was getting hotter this time than the 16 Pro Max. But then on the rear, what I would be saying, you did see the difference there. That vapor chamber is making a difference. It is a bit more cooler, just a bit in the iPhone 17 Pro Max compared to the iPhone 16 Pro Max. And you could see how much of that heat was more centralized in the logic board on the iPhone 16 Pro Max. But there again, with the iPhone Air, there was some differences there, that all the heat was up in the top where that camera plateau was. So that was quite interesting to see that difference there. But next of all, let's move on. Let's now do another test, and this is to do with video recording to see how hot the phones get if you say left them on for 4K recording at 60 frames per second and you were holding it in your hand. Is your phone going to get quite toasty in your hand whilst doing it like this? So then guys, as we can see right here, we've got all the phones set up with their rear cameras. I'm just showing you here the settings I'm going to leave these on. Now, you might have noticed the 16 Pro Max and 17 Pro Max. I do have the option for ProRes at the top, but to turn on log or HDR, what I have to do is I'd have to plug in external hard drives at the bottom here. And that, as it were, to push that out to those drives is actually going to cause more heat there because we're processing it, then moving it over to the likes of the iPhone 17 Pro Max's like hard drive or the iPhone 16 Pro Max hard drive that I'm going to plug in. And I think that's a little bit unfair there. So I'm not going to do that. I'm going to leave it on the normal settings, what is off. But I am going to leave it on 4K, as you can see here, and also 60 frames per second on all of these phones. And we're all going to use the main center camera, the 48 megapixel. And in theory, that should be the exact same one. So with that then, let's get started then. And I'm going to press record on all of these. And we're going to let this go then, or let it record now for 8 minutes. And then when we get to 8 minutes, I'm going to check the temperature to see how hot these phones have got. So we are now into 8 minutes of recording. Let's have a look then. Let's start out with the iPhone 17 Pro Max there. How hot is this getting? So you can see there that maximum, that red crosshair, that is the one we want to be focusing on, the maximum temperature. The white one's where I'm aiming. But you can see there it's getting about 43 degrees. That's how hot that's getting. So that's interesting to see on the front glass. Whereas the likes of, say, the iPhone Air, that's even hotter. Look at that. So just let that calibrate. Look at that. It just had 44 degrees for a split second there. So again, 43 degrees, maybe about the same then as the iPhone 17 Pro Max. But then if we go over to the likes of the iPhone 16 Pro Max at its hottest point, again, that's about 43, let that calibrate again. It's around about 43 degrees, maybe slightly less. It looks like the screens get a little bit hotter, don't they, on these new iPhones now with the bigger brightness or the better brightness and all of that. But what I'm going to do then, let me just put down my thermal camera a second, but let's see what the back of these phones look like. So obviously you'll be holding these phones potentially in your hand to record. So let's see what the back of them look like then in temperature. So I'm just going to flip these all around. There's the Air. And then let's have a look at the likes of the 16 Pro Max 2. So again, using my camera here, let's have a look. So how hot does it get on the back? It's about, let's get that into aim there for you. That's about 42 degrees. Once that, there we go, 43 degrees, about the same really as the front. Was quite interesting there. So that's what we're getting on the 17 Pro Max. The Air, let's have a look. So that is hotter, obviously up in that top corner. So there we go, that camera plateau definitely gets hotter for recording videos. So yeah, the rest of the phone is really cool. So at least though, if you held this phone like in portrait or held it from the other side to the camera, you're gonna be fine. You're not gonna really burn your fingers there. But if we go look at the iPhone 16 Pro Max, it's quite warm actually. Again, it's 44 degrees, 45 degrees. There we go. Just hit 45 degrees there for a split second. So it is very warm there too. So it is making a difference, the iPhone 17 Pro Max, definitely having, you know, this kind of new vapor chamber on the back of the phone. So it's not going to be as hot. I was expecting to get more cooler here. I was expecting to probably have, say, at least, say, 3 or 4 degrees difference between the iPhone 16 Pro Max and the iPhone 17 Pro Max, but it doesn't look like it. Whereas the same with the iPhone Air, you know, it's really hot just at the top, but the rest of it is really cool because it's just the battery. So yeah, that is quite interesting to see what is going on there. But you can see where all the heat is all gathered up here on the iPhone 16 Pro Max. It's on the logic board there, whereas on the iPhone 17 Pro Max, it is cooler down at the battery. So if you look at my white crosshair now, can you see that? So yeah, that's about 37 degrees there if you were holding it there. Whereas if you were holding it, say, down the bottom of, say, the iPhone Air, well, that's going to be cooler too. That's going to be about 35 degrees, 36 degrees. Whereas the iPhone 16 Pro Max is about 39 degrees. So it is making a difference here. I think the end conclusion here is that it's not actually the chip is actually running any cooler. It's the vapor system is just dispensing the heat more around the actual phone. So the center point where the heat is probably going to be very similar what we've got on the iPhone 17 Pro Max, the iPhone 16 Pro Max. It's not all in one area. It's being dispensed out. And that's what my conclusion would be here from doing these two different tests that we've done today. So that was quite interesting too, that the screens were getting quite warm again on the likes of the iPhone Air and the iPhone 17 Pro Max, but the back of the phones definitely had a massive improvement. So the camera plateau, like I said, you could hold the camera or the other end to your hand with this phone would be quite good to do. So you would just hold the battery on the Air, so you wouldn't actually get really that hot at all. Whereas the heat is dispensed quite well over the likes of the iPhone 17 Pro Max. Compared to the iPhone 16 Pro Max, it got far more hotter where the chip was. But one thing that I would definitely say this results have actually shown us here is the difference that obviously the chip inside the likes of the iPhone 17 Pro Max still does get quite hot here. It's not giving us like a 5 to 6 degrees sort of difference what we had with, say, the iPhone 16 Pro Max. It's more dispensing the heat out. And I think this is one thing that a lot of you guys and even I probably had a bit of the illusion of, is that we believed that the actual chip was going to run cooler. And it is to a degree, but it's more that it's dispensing the heat out more equally over the iPhone 17 Pro Max to get rid of it, compared to the likes of the iPhone 16 Pro Max, where it was more centralized in one spot, the heat is. So you had one sort of area there where it was getting really, really hot. So it's a bit of an unusual sort of thing what's going on here. Personally, I don't know, maybe I would say I would prefer to Apple to stick with titanium because of this, because really I thought there was going to be so much more of a difference here that we'd see between both these phones. And yeah, it was also evident here what we see with the likes of the iPhone Air, with everything in that camera plateau, how hot it is getting. It's not over boiling, is it, with that? I know it had one less GPU core, but like when we did say the video recording, it's not really using the GPU cores as much as the 3D benchmark, you saw the difference in heat that we actually had between these three phones. So that's just my food for thoughts there. But with that then, guys, what do you think of the heat then dispensing on the iPhone 17 Pro Max and the camera plateau as well compared to the iPhone 16 Pro Max? Are you impressed? Are you disappointed? Do you think it was going to be better, or do you think it was going to be worse? Let me know in the comments below. And with that as well, guys, it's time to wrap up the video too. So if you have enjoyed watching it, please do press the like button. As always, if you want to hear the latest Apple news, reviews and comparisons, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell. Until next time, guys, I'll see you really soon. Take care. Bye bye.